Excellent. Great. Well, welcome everybody to our business plan challenge info session today. Nick, if you don't mind just monitoring the participants box there, make sure that any stragglers are able to come in, or you can just deactivate the waiting room. Actually, that might be the best. But yes, thank you for joining us, everybody. Happy to see all your wonderful faces. Very happy to see this much interest in our first kind of campus-wide business plan challenge for 2022. So what we're actually going to go through today, we're actually going to walk you through the pitch deck template that will be available to you. You can use this as a guide to kind of build your video pitch. And then we're just going to talk about tips and tricks that might be helpful for building your presentation. And then we'll open the floor up. And if you have any questions, we're all here and happy to answer questions if you have them. Nick, you can't see the waiting room. Okay, I will take care of that.
If you just make me co-host, then I can watch it.
We've got it. I got it. We're good to go. There we go. Nick, where are you? Make you co-host here. Can't find you for some reason. There you are. Boom. Awesome. Okay. So these are the key slides that you're going to need to include on your presentation. So there are 6 major slides, but that doesn't mean we only want to see 6. You can include as many others as you like, but these are the ones that we're really just going to cover in the template. So you got your title slide, you got your introduction, you got your opportunity and problem, you got your solution, you got your market strategy, and then a little bit of wrap up. So we're going to go through each of these in detail and let you know what we're expecting to kind of see in each of these areas and how much they're weighted for the judges scoring. Okay. Christine's asking, will these be mailed out after? Yes, they will be mailed out, and they'll also be available on the Business Plan Challenge website under the resource tab as well. So everyone here will get these sent out to you. Okay. So let's jump into it. So the title slide, obviously, is a very important slide of your presentation. We only see it for a couple of seconds, but the title slide of your pitch deck, it really just gives that first impression of your startup, and that, typically that's to your potential investor. It could be to your professor, but for this, circumstance, it's to the judges, right? Or it's, the customers. So the title slide, needs to put your best foot forward. But here, just keep the design simple. Make sure it includes, if you've got a logo for your business idea or you just want to make one up. The best examples of title slides are really just, they're engaging, they're straightforward, and they deliver kind of a visual overview of your business model and use either, a catchy tagline to state kind of like what you're about or the mission of the company. While it's not essential, we always recommend including the date of your title slide as well. Makes it easier to identify. And make sure, when you're designing it, when you're picking imagery or what's going on there, just know your audience, right? So nothing inappropriate, right? These are going to be community judges and also Fanshawe staff that will be reviewing this. So think of this as kind of your introductory page. It should include your business name, your slogan, if you have one, and your logo as well, if you have one ready at this point. If not, just slap one on there that kind of matches up. Matthew put a decent logo maker there, Brandmark. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Canva is also a great free tool as well. Remember, this doesn't have to actually be a business that exists today. You're just pitching an idea at this stage. So we understand that some of these assets might not be created. But don't forget to add your name to the title slide as well. And since this is the first slide, it's got to be an impression maker. And that powerful image, that's what we rely on to kind of showcase your business idea. So it should set the stage of what you're talking about. So if we look at this example on the next slide, it pretty much kind of speaks for itself. Narrating kind of the business idea is really, it tells you that this image is related to social media in some way, shape, or form. And Buffett is actually a social media scheduler. All accounts in one place, right? It's got that slogan, it's got the date, it's got the business name. For you might want to just put your name on there as well, and a couple images to kind of give me a sense of what I'm about to look at, right? Okay, now there are no marks attributed to the title slide. It's just something we want you to include. So the introduction, this is your opportunity to kind of hook us. This slide has the purpose of making the audience curious about your business. It's very important, right? It reveals kind of the essence of your startup, and this reveal has to be well planned. You know, it can be pulled from, if you're working on a business plan, usually this is where you would pull the executive summary of your business plan. And it's a highlight of really what you're all about. You know, you explain what your business does in less than roughly 30 words or a minute. And you really have to put a lot of thoughts and effort into those 30 words. Because if you don't get this right, it can cause confusion to the audience throughout the rest of your presentation. So ideally, if you can describe your company in kind of one short statement of 30 words, you're most likely, you know, have an audience that can stay interested in your pitch. Okay. So the introduction is worth 10 marks. And to receive a full score in this section, you have to make sure you include kind of the answers to the following questions here: who you are and what your business is. You need to identify what it is you're actually selling, what your motivation to do this business is, and who you want to briefly mention who the target market is. You'll touch on the target market in more detail after, but you do want to mention who you're focusing on. Who is your target market? Who is your customer? Other things that you could include, but are above and beyond, is you may want to mention a key benefit or feature of your product or service, but keep it brief here. You don't have a lot of time in this slide. You could describe your business model briefly. You could talk about the current stage of development. You know, it's just researching, or it could be in existence. And you have the opportunity to maybe talk about what makes you unique. If there was one extra item I would include this last one. How are you different than the competition out there? What is the unique feature or benefit that you provide to your customers? Okay. So here's just an example of what it could look like. So this is not what yours has to look like, but as you can see, there's, you know, it's minimal text, there's some bullets, there's some imagery. It's got this kind of summary on here. Obviously, you're doing this as a video pitch. So, you know, you need to make sure there's room depending on what platform you use. If you're using Zoom, it will, you know, add your face. We want to see your face. Make sure your video pitch has your face. Don't hide it. So on Zoom, if you look at my cursor here, you know, the image of your face will show up over here. But if you're using a different platform to record it, your head might show up in the slide. So make sure you're designing your slides according to how it will be shown to your viewer. Okay. So next is the thing that we were talking about that needs to also be included is in your introduction, is mentioning your target market. So here you want to explain who your customers are, and this gives you opportunity to showcase how well you know them. You want to make sure to mention where you got your info. If there was a bunch of databases you pulled everything from, you can just throw that on the slide there and a link to it or something like that. Just showing that, like, you're not just making this information up. You don't have to mention it, but you want to make sure it's there on the slide. So things to include here would be, you know, customer profile. So, you know, are you B2B or B2C? Do you do business with other businesses, or you business to consumer? Be, you know, a brief explanation of like a little bit about them, their age, gender, profession, income, where they located. These are just many different things you could include. There's definitely a link here to 8 kind of easy steps to creating a customer profile. Again, you don't have a lot of time to kind of go through all this, but you do want to give us a sense of who your customer is. What are their attitudes, their beliefs, their values? You know, why did you choose them as your customer segment? Okay. So here's just an example of, you know, what a customer profile could look like. It mentions the demographics. So we have age, marital status, gender, you know, parental status, where are they located, you know, their habits, their lifestyle, their interests, their values under psychographics, and then anything around socioeconomic classification. So that's like, you know, their occupation, their salary, home environment. So depending on your business, depending on your industry, this could look very different. There are many examples out there for many different industries of what a typical customer profile will look like. Obviously, this is for a B2C type business. If you're B2B, this is going to look very different. So you want to make sure that you understand the differences between a customer profile for your industry versus another. Okay, so make sure that you're putting the proper information here. Next is listing your opportunity or the problem. So this is one of the most important slides in your deck. This is where you get to go into detail about, what kind of inspired you to create this business idea. Because the problem is really the foundation of your idea, because your solution to the problem is essentially your product. So you're setting up your solution here. So if your product actually doesn't solve a problem, nobody's actually going to buy it. It's got to solve a problem, or it's got to help with some type of need that a customer will have. So the problem side, it'll show the judges or your customers or your investors how relevant your product is and provides a glimpse into your market. It would be best if you had your audience agree that the problem you present exists, right? So if you're building this in a microcosm, you might want to pitch it to a roommate, a friend, a family member and say, does this make sense? My problem and then the solution I'm proposing. Because it might make sense up here, but maybe the way you're pitching it might need a little bit of work, or maybe it's just you think it makes sense, but when you're saying it might need a little development here. So definitely make sure there's a good match between the problem, the need, or the opportunity you're identifying and the solution you're proposing. It needs to be a nice fit, okay? And the problem should focus on the pain points that your business solves or needs or improvements that you create for your customers. That is the crux of this slide. What are the pain points, or what are the improvements that you have identified that need to be improved upon, okay? Using facts here makes things convincing, but I personally think the best way to describe a problem or an opportunity is by telling a good story. So if you're a good storyteller and you can make a story that's relevant to your audience and helps them identify like, oh yeah, I've had that problem before. Oh, I've experienced that before, or I understand through a story, it tends to be a little bit more powerful than just facts and figures. But again, follow the style that you're most comfortable with and is most suitable to your business idea and your industry. So the problem and opportunity portion of the presentation is worth 10 marks. And to receive a full score in this section, you need to answer these key questions. What is the opportunity? What is the problem or the need? And has it been identified? And what are your target market's pain points? So these are the key things that you'll be judged upon. So make sure at the bare minimum, you include that at this part of the presentation. So an example here from Airbnb, they identify their problem right here. What's the problem? Okay, for travelers. Well, it's an important concern for customers to book travel online. So price is a major problem. Finding an affordable place to stay is a problem. Hotels tend to leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. That would be a problem for travelers. And there's no easy way that exists to book a room with a local or become a host. So that is the problem that Airbnb kind of identified. Abdallah is asking to explain pain points more. So what we're talking about in pain points would be kind of exactly this. So you think about your target customer in mind. Who is it that you're building this product or service for? And you think about the pains that they might experience that they would need your solution for. So a traveler who might be looking for something like Airbnb is looking for a affordable way to travel. So, their pain point would be that there is no affordable way for me to travel and, meet locals. That would be a pain point, okay? It could be that hotels are too expensive. That is a pain point. Does that make sense, Abdallah? Awesome. Next, we have the solution. So this is where you come in. You identify what the problem is that the target customer has. You identify the needs they might have and those pain points. Now, so you've set them up. Now you got to knock it out of the park with your solution, right? By now, your audience, you're hoping that they're going to have an understanding of what the problem is that you're focusing on. So they should be invested in the idea of helping you fix it. So the solution you present must be, hopefully exciting, the way you deliver it, it should be memorable, and maybe it's innovative, maybe it's not. Not everything here needs to be a brand new idea that doesn't exist, but you should have some excitement, should be memorable in the way you present your solution. So this is the part, where that storytelling can kind of come back in, right? Depending on if you're a storyteller or not. So you're with your problem that you've identified, you've told a story that doesn't have a happy ending yet. You've identified a problem maybe through the story, and then the solution is where you provide that happy ending. Okay, your happy ending is your business idea. So if you have a prototype, or you want to mock up one, or just get other images of what it could look like, this is the time to show it off, right? If you're pitching a concept, your deck could include videos, it can include pictures, it can include illustrations. It doesn't just have to be you talking. You want to present the whole image. You want to put an image into people's minds. So try to be visual when you're presenting your solution. So, this is where, if this was a two-way presentation, and if you do make it to the finals, it will be a two-way presentation. You'll have opportunity to engage with the judges, and they'll ask you questions. So this is where, you would encourage the judges to ask questions and make sure that the audience fully understands the solution. You don't have that opportunity here. You're doing a video pitch. It's one-sided. You have to hope that the judge understands. So make sure it's very clear what it is that your solution does and provides. Okay? Make sure it's clear. Again, make sure your solution offering slide isn't too wordy, but digestible here. You don't want to lose everybody. Like, this is too wordy. What I have here is too wordy. This is not a template to reuse. This is just, we're using this deck to tell you what to put in there. Don't use this as the exact replica of what you're creating. So too wordy is bad on this. It's better to have visuals, okay? But make sure that whatever it is, so you could have a complex process or very complex business that needs a lot of dialogue to describe, that's okay, but don't use it as a crutch, okay? A diagram or a sketch is better to kind of explain your idea, as well as, maybe just examples can be very helpful as well. So to receive the full 15 marks in this section, you should identify what the feature, or so first identify what your product does or your service does. What are the features of it? What are the benefits of it? AKA, how does it solve a problem? And what is your pricing strategy? So this is where you would mention a little bit about your pricing strategy. So this is, how much are you charging? Are you doing a model that has subscription fees? Are you doing a model that's just, a one-time transaction? It's just, you pay for a product, I get product, right? So whatever goes into your pricing strategy needs to be identified here as well. Most of you are probably coming up with a business that already exists. Ideally, there's some type of example out there. So this is where you would look to the industry, to the competitors, and be like, okay, what's the typical pricing look like? What's the typical kind of model that they use in their pricing? And, just set kind of a standard that way. So an example, again, if we use the Airbnb model, their solution, so we already identified the problem that travelers have. So the solution is Airbnb, a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers, to save money when traveling, make money when hosting, and share culture by connecting them to locals in their city. Very straightforward, very minimal here. Of course, you could add in videos of people traveling and other stuff like that. It's not, you're doing a video pitch, so you can add in those other elements too. But very straightforward, very clear what the value of Airbnb is and how they go about solving the problem. Now for yours, this is an exact example because we've asked you to also include some features and benefits. That's what we see here. The benefits are that you save money, you make money, you share culture. The only feature we see here is kind of that it's a web platform that you can rent out their space and you can host travelers. So it's a bit of features. You might have to have a little bit more detail there when you go into features and benefits. Okay. Next is the market strategy. So, sorry, I need a drink. So to receive full marks here, and it's 15 marks for this section, you need to tell us what your industry looks like. So location, size, market potential, and also what marketing activities that you plan to engage in and why. Okay, so what are you doing for promotion? Are you attracting people and generating leads? And why did you choose those things? Okay. So again, this whole rubric it's in its own document in detail. It's on the website. It'll be emailed with this deck to you as well. Okay. So for the industry, or sorry, for the market strategy, oh, what do we have here? We have some questions. Those, I didn't realize that. Sorry, I didn't see that there were some questions already coming in. Do we need to select a problem which exists in Canada, or can it be a global one? It can be a global one. Abdullah says, when should I ask the audience if they have any questions? Well, for the video pitch, you can't ask them if they have any questions because they're not going to be able to ask you. You're submitting this pitch, the judges are judging it, so you won't be able to include that for the video pitch. If you make it through to the finals, you would ask it at the end. So you would finish your presentation with, thank you for your time. I will take any questions now if there is any. That's where you would include it. Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. So for industry profile under your market strategy, this is kind of what we're looking for. So when I said, what does your industry look like, location, size, market potential, these are things that you could include. So, for size, it's, what is the size of your industry at, are you talking local, you're talking regional, national, international? Give us a sense of how big this market is. It can be in terms of how many people that you could sell to, could be in terms of how many dollars are spent annually. Those are usually the units that we use to determine the size of an industry. It's either in dollars or number of people. But again, if you're pulling this data, make sure if you're in your final presentation, be prepared to say where you got this information. You're not making this up, right? Growth potential, again, that was for the finalist pitch. You don't need to include that for the video pitch. But you will need, if someone does email you and ask questions, you may need to provide that information. So you may want to just put a link at the bottom of your slide as to where that information is from, so that it's ready and available if someone does come asking for that, for clarity that could possibly happen. It depends on how the judges approach it. For growth potential, we're just asking, is your industry growing? Is it stable? Is it declining? Are there any trends happening in the industry? So these are external factors that could impact your business. There are things happening in the government that could be impacting. Is COVID causing issues or supply chain issues? What industry trends or greater trends can impact your business? Other things we could look at is, you could find maybe what's the average profit for a business in your industry? Is seasonality a problem in your industry? Is it very cyclical or seasonal? And then you could, also add in elements of distribution channels. So, what current distribution channels exist in this industry to support you? Who will you sell retail? Are you going to sell wholesale? Are you direct to consumer? So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're thinking about our distribution channels. So when you're sizing up the market, this is just some common terminology that you may hear. And these are things that you could use as well to present the size of your market. So when you're doing your research out there, you may come across kind of these three different terms: TAM, SAM, and SOM. So TAM is when we're describing the total market for your product. So that's when you see a number like this industry is worth, $700 billion and expected to grow 24 billion year over year. That's usually they're talking about the total addressable market. That's including all your competitors and every kind of a like type product or service that could exist. That's what we're talking when we're talking about total market for your product or total addressable market. SAM is one level down from that. That's your serviceable available market. So that is the portion of the market that you can acquire based on your capabilities. Based on your capabilities and your budget. So it's, what do you think you can actually acquire if resources weren't cost prohibitive, basically. Based on my target customers, I think I could acquire this total available market. But what we're really looking for is the sum. This is your target market. This is the most niche down group of individuals. This is the percentage of the serviceable available market that you can actually realistically capture in the next year or two. So, obviously we have aspirations to get to this larger level up here, but usually when you start a business, when it's a new startup, you're just trying to focus on this small niche target market. That is what when you're out there doing your research, you might find numbers that are more related to this, but we challenge you to see if you can make a prediction as to like what the serviceable, obtainable market is. When you're talking to investors, when you're talking to the judges, they're going to want you to be realistic. If you walk into the room and you tell them that this industry is worth $198 billion, we're going to know right away that that's not true, right? Bigger numbers don't mean that people will be impressed. Bigger numbers usually mean that you haven't done enough research, right? So scale it down. Yes, the market's worth that much, but how many people can you realistically actually obtain given your current resources? Okay. So here's an example. So we start at 1.9 billion as our total addressable market, which gets scaled down to 532 million, which then gets scaled down to 10.6 million as our actual target market. Now your numbers could be way less than that. It could be 10,000 down to 1,000 down to 500, right? Those 500 could be very valuable customers. Sometimes more doesn't mean more value, right? There may only be a small market available for what you're offering. So obviously it's going to look uniquely different for each and every one of you. For the marketing activities part of this part of the presentation, just make sure that you're, describing the types of marketing you're going to do and why. So I included this kind of image here. Things to consider are thinking about it in these terms here. Think about shared media. Are you doing influencer campaigns? Could be earned media. Are you doing public relations? Could be paid media. I definitely recommend paid media. This is, social media, paid ads, other platform paid ads. This is where we're actually getting invested in promoting our business, which is usually needed when we're a new startup that nobody knows about. You have to do a little paid media. And then of course is owned media. So this is, you creating blogs and other kind of branding assets, employee stories, customer stories, other things that are things that you personally own. So it's more or less your content strategy there. Okay, so this is a nice way to break it up, and you can kind of pick things, that you think would be relevant to your industry. So when talking about those marketing activities, just thinking about, things to think about here is, what's your plan for marketing, advertising, and promotion and publicity over the next 12 months? That's the context of when you're thinking of your marketing activities. You might want to mention what you think your budget might be. If you don't have your budget, that's okay. We don't necessarily need that, but it helps give you more context. And how are you going to measure the effectiveness of your activities? You could also include that. Again, it's not necessary, but you could include it. A great way to showcase this, your marketing activities is you can create a mock-up calendar, a content calendar. This is what I'm going to do for the 12-month year, but you don't have to. You can also just create bullet points or use images to describe it as well. Okay, and then there's lots of examples of spreadsheets or calendars out there where you could kind of show the year in one snapshot if you wanted to put that much work into it. Okay. Lastly, we have the wrap up. Now, to get full marks on this, you just need to make sure that you include a brief summary of all the main headlines of the last part of the presentation. So it's wrapping it up, just giving us a summary of the major points of your pitch. And then you want to finish with a clear call to action that states what you're asking for. Okay. So for the context of this presentation, we're asking the judges as if they were investors into our business, or they are customers. So it's up to you to determine which context you want to use. If they are investors into your business, then you can use the first place prize amount as that's how much you're asking to help with moving this business idea forward. You want to be specific when you're asking for something. What would you use the money for? Be specific. Don't be super vague. I'm going to use that money for running my first ad campaign or whatever else might be, to build a facility. I don't know what it might be, but be specific with what it is. If it's customers, you're asking them to do something, to purchase, to go to the website. to donate to your Kickstarter, something like that. But you just want to have some type of call to action at the end, okay? Lastly is the wow factor. The wow factor is judged as well. And this is kind of things that will happen throughout your presentation. So the judges are going to be looking at how clearly and concisely you communicate throughout the pitch. So make sure that you're clear and concise. You practice this a few times before you actually send it off. They are going to be looking at how your confidence is on display throughout the pitch. So making sure you're speaking clearly, that you're looking actually at the camera. That usually, your body language can really say a lot about how confident you feel. So looking at your eye contact and body language throughout the pitch is important. And then they're going to look at how cohesive and logical your pitch is. So did they get lost along the way? That's what they're going to want to know. Does it make sense? And lastly, does your pitch make them say, wow? And we're looking for like a wow factor here. Did you put some effort in? Is it impressive? Okay. So the total marks are out of 75 and the rubric is available on the website. When you have this deck as well, each of these links are clickable. So these are just some presentation resources. These are also available on the Business Plan Challenge website at the bottom. But these are just a bunch of different tools that can be helpful for creating your presentation and actually creating your video. But here's your links here. I'm going to post this in the chat right now, just in case our email goes to your spam or something like that. So the deck link is there. The rubric link is there for you. So you all have it now. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about creating kind of that compelling video. So we're not going to talk so much about what you're scored on, but like just some more tips about making this an awesome video. So, excuse me, a little more water. Now it can be a bit, scary or intimidating to think about making a video, but know that all great videos, really have the same basic elements. And once you really understand those elements, you're really, capable of creating something awesome. So we're going to go through some just helpful tips on creating a great video. So just 7 tips. Okay. So the first one is make sure you're looking for opportunity to hook the viewer. Our attention is limited as the viewers, the judge's attention is limited and your time is limited for this presentation as well. Abdullah, I'll answer your question once I'm finished. Sorry. So you don't have time for a slow start. You want to come out of the gates, running. So within the first 30 seconds, you should grab the viewer's attention. You should introduce them to your product or service very clearly, and you should show them how your product or service is going to benefit them. Okay, so you got to hook them right away. So, a straightforward appeal is usually my favorite. It gets, right to the point, or telling a story. Really helps to put the audience in the shoes of your customer. Okay, so if you have this example here, this one's an example of straight to the point. Micro Drone 3.0 is small, maneuverable, and customizable drone that streams HD footage to your phone. Boom. It describes exactly what it is. It's very clear. Okay, tell me more. I'm interested now. If I'm interested in drones and what they can do, yeah, tell me more. Let's learn more, right? So the other thing we have to think of when we're considering that hook is answering the 6 W's. So we never assume that people already know what our product or service is, or that they'll just get it, right? You need to make sure you answer these questions here. So after you've completed kind of that first part of your deck, you want to go back and look and say, did I answer all of these questions? Do they know who I am? Do they know what I offer? Do they know what my value is, or what my competitive advantage is, or what makes me unique? Do they know where I offer it and how they can get it? Do they understand why they should care? And depending on where you're at the stage of development, do they also understand when it'll be available if it isn't ready? Okay. So make sure that you're not on slide 14, your judge is not on slide 14 and they're still wondering what the heck it is that you're offering to them. Okay. Tip number 2 is keep it short and sweet. Remember, you only have 5 minutes max. This doesn't mean you need to go right up to the 5-minute mark. Okay. You can, of course, but anything over that 5-minute mark will not be considered. So if you're 1 minute over, you will not be accepted as a presentation. Okay. So make sure you stay within the limit. Anything under 3 minutes would maybe be a little bit more questionable that you have enough content there to be a good candidate to make it through to the finals. Okay, so keep it short and sweet. Stay within those time limits. And make sure you practice it to get it down to the point where it doesn't feel rushed right up to the ending. Okay. Tip number 3 is focus on benefits and support them with features. Okay, so it's important to note the difference between benefits and features. Features are that technical part of your product or your service. The benefits are how it actually will make someone's life better. So our examples here, GoPro, what is the benefit of GoPro? It lets us capture awesome memories. Fitbit, it helps us stay in shape. Those are the benefits. So we always focus on the benefits of a product first. Then you can show us the product's features and you can explain how those features support the benefit. As they say in the biz, features tell and benefits sell. Okay, so make sure you put a little bit of an emphasis more on benefits. Tip number 4 is being real and personal. So, people like our judges, our customers, our investors, they get excited about a product when they connect with the team or the person behind it. So try to put some of yourself into it. Keep it real, okay? A personal connection can be, deeply rewarding for you and your contributors. So it also really shows them that they can trust you and then they can, that you can actually deliver on what it is you're saying you can deliver. So to build this kind of trust, to create a sense of realism, make sure you're speaking directly to the camera, make sure to be completely honest and not misrepresent yourself or your company, and make sure you share your passion with us. If you are passionate and you believe in it, then most likely, the judges will believe in it as well. Okay. Tip number 5 is make sure we can hear you. Okay. Good audio is key. Test your audio. Make sure you have a good mic. We don't want to hear any crackling or fuzziness or have to crank the volume and put my ear up to the speaker just to hear what you're saying. So make sure to record your video or your audio in a quiet space. Try to eliminate any white noise or static and make sure that you practice this. Don't do your whole presentation and then listen to it. Test your equipment first, then start recording your presentation. If anything is at all unclear, consider maybe adding subtitles. You can quickly add this video to YouTube, as a private link. It will auto transcribe it for you. You can add those subtitles. So if that's needed, and then you can re-download it and send it off to us or just provide the link to us as well. Okay. Remember, there's also Fanshawe Media Services that are located at London main campus. So if you need support to have equipment that you don't have, our media services team is happy to help you with any equipment needs that you might have. Okay. Tip number 6 is show rather than tell. So try to use concrete examples. I talked about this already. Photos, video clips. If you're far enough ahead, testimonials from others. But don't just face the camera and explain things. Make sure your video is a visual showcase of what you're all about. This is the sizzle to your steak here, okay? So give us a little extra, give us an opportunity to really visualize what you and this business are about. This is where, stock footage or B-roll footage from websites like Pexels can really come in handy. And again, there's more resources in that list I already provided to you that can help with this aspect, okay? Lastly, end with that clear call to action. Again, I'm going to state it because people forget every time we run a pitch competition and it's something you're scored on. So make sure you have that clear call to action, that direct statement that asks people to do something. If you want them to fund your idea, as an investor, you're asking for money. If they're a customer and you want them to go to your website or follow you on social media or spread the word, then say that, okay? Just make sure you include it. Now, every video, should help your potential customer or the judge answer some very basic questions. So again, make sure these things are answered. What is your product? How does it make my life better? How will I use it? Why should I trust you? Why do I want it? And are you the one that's actually going to deliver on this promise of value? These questions might seem simple, but answering them, can actually be a bit challenging. So make sure you're giving yourself enough time to practice. Most products and services are actually quite complex. but seems simple to you because you likely know the product inside and out. You're familiar with the brand, you're familiar with the business. So make sure you try to see the video through the eyes of someone who knows nothing about your product. You don't need to explain every detail, but you just need to answer the questions that we've already listed in the most clearest and engaging way possible. That's what will make your video presentation as best as it can be. And with that, I'm going to show one quick example, and then we are going to open the floor up for, for questions. Now, this is a really over-engineered example. I don't expect any of your videos to be this awesome. However, it's really great, simple, very paced well of how, so think about what they're saying, not so much the visuals, how they explain everything very clearly.
Imagine if you didn't have to get your phone out for every little thing. What if there was a simpler way to interact with your devices? Flick is a wireless button that connects to your iOS or Android device. So instead of going through your phone, you simply press the button. That's better. I use the Flick app to set it up, and then I can stick Flick wherever I want. I can even share this Flick with my roommate, so he can use it when I'm not around. But Flick isn't just for your house. You can stick your Flicks anywhere, like in your car or on your bike.
Head straight.
It's really cool.
Your destination is on the left.
And you can clip your Flicks. It's great for any situation where you need a quick and discreet shortcut.
Me, 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 me.
Like now.
Me, me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to take this. But Flick can be so much more than just a shortcut to your phone. It can be integrated with lots of different services beyond your devices. Check this one out. Take me home, Cabby. And when I get home, I want everything to just take care of itself. Shh, movie's starting. Another great feature of Flick is that it can be used as a safety device. With just a push of a button, you can send live updates of your location or even a distress signal to your family and friends.
Cut! It's a wrap!
All right, good job. Finally. Good job, man. Anyone wants pizza? Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see from that video, obviously it doesn't include everything we've asked you to include in your presentation. You know, it focuses mainly on explaining the product and the service that they're providing. And it goes into details around the features, the benefits, the problems, the needs. So it's more focused on the explanation. And we've asked you to include definitely more in your presentation. But it's that example really kind of shows how you can add some creativity into the explanation of what it is you're trying to build. And with that, I wish you good luck. And remember, you know, taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse, isn't it? If you're comfortable while you're doing it, probably doing it wrong. So this whole journey, building this presentation, is probably going to be uncomfortable. And that's why you have support. So if you need help building this presentation, please, please, please come and see us. You can book a meeting with any of our advisors through our website, leapjunction.ca. You can email me directly. There is my contact information. And definitely, if you're a social media type person, come visit us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, because we'd love a follow. And we'd also love to engage with you with all of our awesome content. Now, in the deck, I've also provided some more examples, which I'm not going to go through right now, but they are available to you to use as kind of some examples of other people kind of, pitching their businesses in different ways. So definitely check those out in your own time. But for now, I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to open up the floor to all of you and give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Now, I know that Abdallah had put one in the chat, so I'm going to just look at that really quickly. If you're pitching to an investor, do I have to mention the same amount of money as the competition prize? In your own situation, if you're pitching to an investor, no, you would definitely be pitching the amount you're actually asking for. For the sake of this presentation, if you've chosen investor as the audience, then you would mention the same amount as the competition prize. Hopefully you're going for first place, but if you want to ask for the second or third place amount too, sure, why not? Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions? Feel free to throw them in the chat or unmute yourself. When is the due date? Yes, that's a great question. It is I believe I'm getting my dates confused now with Leap In, but I believe it's the 18th. Jenny, you want to confirm for me?
It is February 18th.
Yes. It's the 18th is the final day that you can submit your video pitch. Definitely suggest not waiting till the last day to submit it, just in case technology issues happen. Please be prepared. So once you do submit, Abdallah, there'll be a review process. So the judges will review all the video submissions, and then they will narrow it down to the 10 finalists. The 10 finalists will have the opportunity to work with a series of coaches from Fanshawe College staff and faculty, and you'll be able to meet with different coaches who will prepare you for your final 10-minute presentation. That will be live, but it will not be in person. It will be over Zoom, the final presentation. So this one, yeah, you have a time limit of only 5 minutes maximum. Any other questions from anybody? No. All right then. Well, if that is everything, then I wish you all good luck in creating some amazing video pitch presentations. And again, if you need help, if you're looking for some guidance, please reach out to us and come and see us. But make sure you give yourself enough time to meet with us and still submit your presentation. Don't leave it to the last second, okay? So thank you, everybody. And have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your week. And we look forward to seeing those amazing pitches in a few weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.